Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. I am so glad that you are joining me on this beautiful morning. But before we talk about today's worship service, let's sing a quick song to welcome everyone that has joined us. If you know it, sing along. If not, you can clap and dance. Ready? Hello, everybody. How do you do? How do you do? How do you do? Hello, everybody. How do you do? God loves you today. Thank you for singing with me. Today is the fourth Sunday after Epiphany. Remember, Epiphany is when we celebrated the visit of the Magi to baby Jesus. After Epiphany, we are in ordinary time where we use green to remind us that we are growing. We will hear two readings today. Our first reading is from the book of Psalms. One translation of today's psalm says, God's handiwork is honesty and justice. All God's rules are trustworthy. They are established always and forever. They are fulfilled with truth and right doing. Our second reading is from the Gospel of Mark. In this reading, Jesus speaks and some amazing things happen. Listen for them in the service. Then, after the sermon, we will sing a hymn. This hymn is called Where Charity and Love Prevail. You will hear the line, Let us forgive each other's faults as we are unconfessed, that we may love each other well in Christian gentleness. This song helps me remember that we can forgive each other and we can name it when we are wrong. Yesterday, January 30th, was Fred Korematsu Day, a special day to remember a person named Fred Korematsu. When he was only 23 years old, the U.S. government wanted to force all Japanese Americans to go to camps that were like prisons, called internment camps. Mr. Korematsu refused to go. He was arrested and appealed his case all the way to the Supreme Court. In 1944, the Supreme Court ruled against him. But in the 80s, they found proof of what Mr. Korematsu and so many others knew, that what the government did was wrong. Mr. Korematsu remained an activist, which means someone who speaks up throughout his whole life, always speaking up for others and what was right. So today's story is about a young boy named Jimmy and Jimmy's family's experience in an internment camp. This book is based on the experiences of the author's family. Are you ready? Fish for Jimmy, inspired by one family's experience at a Japanese American internment camp, by Katie Yamasaki. When Taro and Jimmy went to the ocean, Taro would tell Jimmy about the fish. The fish had taught Taro how to swim, he said. Jimmy hoped that one day he would be as strong and as smart as Taro. Then he too would learn the ways of the fish and the water. Then Taro would point across the great Pacific Ocean and tell his brother stories about Japan, the land mother and father had left long ago in search of a better life. The life they found in California was good indeed. Father and two other men opened a vegetable market. Farmers brought their vegetables to the farmer's market, and he would sell them to owners of small vegetable stands. Some days, Mother helped by keeping track of the stock and greeting the vegetable stand owners as they searched for the ripest tomatoes and the leafiest lettuce. But one night in early December 1941, Mother and Father frowned deeply at what they heard on the radio. Japan had bombed Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Taro and Jimmy wondered why their parents were so worried. Hawaii was far away, and Japan even farther. Mother answered the door to three men, whose badges read FBI. The men told Father that because he was Japanese, he posed a threat to America. Father tried to explain that he loved living in America. He had a home and a vegetable market and a family here. But the men said he had to go with them. As Father left, he said to Taro, "You are the man of the house now. You must help your mother and take care of Jimmy until I return." But Father would not return soon. One day, signs went up all across California with orders for people of Japanese descent. Japan and America were at war, and Japanese American people were forced to leave their homes and schools and jobs. Taking only what they could carry, they boarded crowded buses with covered windows. The buses carried Mother, Jimmy, Taro, and others to a desolate land where they were forced to live in tiny barracks, surrounded by guarded fences. In the dusty internment camp, Jimmy lost his appetite. "Whose child was that?" the cooks whispered, glancing at Jimmy. "He hasn't eaten since we've been here." Mother bowed her head in desperation. Meal after meal, day after day, Mother tried to get Jimmy to eat. "It's delicious today, Jimmy, I promise. Now open wide." Then Taro tried. Jimmy refused Taro too. Jimmy didn't understand why his family couldn't be together at home near the Pacific Ocean, at home where they could eat in their own kitchen. Why couldn't his mother cook the good rice and noodles, fresh vegetables and fish that he was used to? Soon, Jimmy stopped asking about the Pacific fish and could no longer remember how the ocean looked and smelled. He stopped running with the other children. Mother and Taro feared that Jimmy was becoming ill. Taro could not sleep, as his mind was filled with troubling thoughts. He worried about Jimmy. He worried about their father. And he remembered that night in December when the men took him away. "You must help your mother and take care of Jimmy until I return," his father had said. Quiet as a breeze, Taro wrapped the shears he had secretly borrowed from the camp garden in his mother's scarf and slid them into his pocket. He slipped out the front door. Taro crept from shadow to shadow until he arrived at the fence. He glanced at the guards in the distance. Impossible as it was, he feared they could hear his heart pounding in his chest. He clipped the fence and slipped into the darkness. Taro ran fast and far until, breathing heavily, he arrived at a mountain. A trickle of water led to a quiet pool where still black water reflected the night sky. Standing in the pool, Taro felt fish bump against his legs. He slowly lowered his hands into the water and let his fingers sway like reeds. He silently asked the river fish to help his brother. A fish swam to the swaying fingers, and Taro caught it. He caught another and another until he had 7 fish for Jimmy. When the fish wrapped in his with the fish wrapped in his mother's scarf, Taro retraced his steps. He felt the fresh air of freedom. The cool mountain air was so different from what he breathed in the barracks. Back at camp, he slipped through the hole in the fence and once again crept from shadow to shadow back to his prison home. In the morning, there was fish for Jimmy. As Mother cooked the fish in their barrack, Taro's belly rumbled. he realized how much he, too, had missed the fresh food of home. "Are these Pacific fish?" Jimmy asked. "Did they come from far away, like us?" Mother laughed as Jimmy ate at last. Taro had forgotten the sound of his mother's laugh, and it was beautiful. With bellies full, Taro and Jimmy went outside to draw pictures in the dusty earth, and when other children came by, Jimmy went off to play with them. Many months later, Father was released from prison and was permitted to join the rest of the family at the camp. Taro showed Father how, each week, he would creep beyond the fence to the free air of the mountains to find fish for Jimmy. Dear reader, this story is based on a true story from my own family's history in the Japanese internment camps. In the real story, my grandfather's cousin snuck out of the camp to find fish for his very young son. In the book, what happened to Taro and Jimmy's father is based on what happened to my great-grandfather, Uncle Hiroshiki. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Many American soldiers were killed, and the next day the United States declared war on Japan. The years that followed were extremely hard times for people of Japanese descent. More than 110,000 American citizens of Japanese descent and Japanese resident aliens, including my great-grandparents, aunts, and uncles, lost their homes and were sent to live in internment camps in desolate parts of the country. They were sent there because the government feared people of Japanese descent couldn't be trusted. Many innocent Japanese men, such as my great-grandfather, were also arrested and sent to prison the night of Pearl Harbor for fear they were spies for Japan. The camps were closed in 1945, and in 1988, the United States government admitted it had made a mistake and offered a formal apology to the victims of the internment. Katie Yamasaki. If you want a special project for during the service today, use materials you have at home to make a fish. I used a paper plate and just some colored paper, but you can do whatever you want. Or you can write a letter. I tell somebody something important. Because books like Fish for Jimmy, authors like Katie Yamasaki, and activists like Fred Korematsu remind me that God's handiwork is truth and justice. And we all get to be a part of each of those. To close today, will you sing the compassion prayer that we learned in Compassion Camp with me? Thanks, Clifford. Thanks, Scruffy. May we be filled with compassion. May we be filled up to the top of our hearts. May we have the power to make something right. May we show God's love. May we be shown compassion. May we be found in the center of peace. When we have needs that others can meet, may we find God's love. Friends, may you speak up for what is right, and may we also speak up for you. May we love each other in Christian gentleness. I hope you enjoyed the service today. Goodbye.